Hello guys, welcome back to our virtual Latin class with Mr. Flynn. It's great to be back with you. Today is the Feast of the Annunciation. I'm going to be posting this by tomorrow, but today's the Feast of the Annunciation, so we're going to start with an Ave Maria. So if you would like, you can join, stand in prayer, and we would say, In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Well, here we go. Two more sentences, one English, one Latin. This is sentence 4 from page 57. So let's look at it together. Regina magnum gladium, vero bono David, ut cum Romanis in campo pugnet. All right, let's start with the first word as we always do. We always go a word at a time. We look at Regina. And Regina, we first say what part of speech? Well, we're dealing with a noun here. All right, so what do? What are the three qualities we're looking for in a noun? Hopefully you always write all of these down in your sentences. The three qualities are gender, number, and case. So we see that A at the end, so we know it is feminine, it's first declension. We know that A does not have a macron, so it's nominative. That is the case. And then we know indeed that it is singular. All right, so if we go to the next word, magnum. Now, a lot of people might say in your translation, you might want to check this to see if you have it there, you might say the great queen or the large queen. But you'll notice that magnum, first off, is an adjective, and it's got this ending "um." Well, that doesn't agree. That can be the nominative neuter, but this is the nominative feminine. And adjectives have to agree with nouns in gender, number, and case. So this cannot be modifying Regina. All right. So, oh, by the way, Regina is the subject of our sentence, right? It's in the nominative. So, magnum. So we look at that one. What could it be? Well, magnum could be a couple of things. It could be nominative, singular, and neuter. It could be accusative, singular, and neuter. It could be masculine and singular and neuter. We know it could be, could be accusative, singular, and masculine and not neuter, right? Those are the other possibilities. So we're going to have to wait to see what the next word is. We know this word means great. It's an adjective. We come to the next word and we see it's gladium. Gladium is what? What part of speech? Well, it's a noun. All right, so we have another noun. So what's our gender, number, and case? Well, this one can only be one thing because gladius gladii is masculine, right? So it can only be one thing. It can only be masculine, singular, and accusative. So if we assume, and I think we can rightly assume, that this magnum is modifying that gladium, we can eliminate the nominative, I should have said nominative, plural, nominative singular neuter. We could have said the accusative singular neuter. We're going to eliminate both of those, and we know it's the accusative singular masculine. So it's the great sword or the large sword. You could translate it either way. The great sword or the large sword. And this is an attributive adjective. It's modifying that word directly. All right. So what is gladium? Well, if it's the accusative, right, then we have the direct object. So the queen is doing something to the great sword or the large sword. The queen is doing something with it. We don't know what that is yet until we get more along the sentence. So the queen, subject, the great sword, object. Now we come to this next one, viro. Viri, second declension. We know this is a noun. All right. So again, we look for the qualities of a noun. What do we recognize? Well, we recognize that it's masculine. Obviously, it's the word man. It is singular, and it can be two cases. Widow could be two cases. It could be dative, or it could be ablative. Well, if it's dative, it's probably an indirect object. We're going to look for a verb of giving, showing, or telling. And if it's ablative, it could be the ablative of, well, it can be ablative of means or instrument. It could be in some other form of the ablative. We don't know yet, but that's a possibility. So then we go to this next word, bono. All right, we look at that word and we say, okay, wait a minute. This is another adjective. And notice it's got the same endings here. And adjectives agree in gender, number, and case with the noun that they modify. And this obviously is masculine, singular, and it could again be dative or ablative. We're going to hold off judgment on that. So this could be to or for the good men or with the good men. It could be either one of those. All right? We will see. All right. Now, we come to this next word. Now, this helps us. This is the end of our first clause. This clinches it for us, okay? We have dabit. Well, that is what part of speech? That's a verb. All right? That is a verb. And that, we look at it, we say, okay, here's the stem, here's a tense sign, and here is the personal ending. Da, bit, bit, bit. Okay, where do we see that? Where do we see that tense sign? We see that in the future tense. What's the personal ending? The personal ending is T. So, what do we have here? We have the third person, singular, and future. And it's the indicative case. It's the indicative active. All right. So, we put all this together, and here's how it works. We can say, wow, we do have a verb of giving, showing, or telling. So we're going to remove the ablative option here. And we're going to say this is probably the indirect object. So your first clause should read, the queen will give a great sword to the good man. The queen will give a great sword to the good man. Or you can say the queen will give the good man, a large sword. Either of those works. So the queen will give the good man a large sword, or the queen will give a large sword to the good man. Either one of those works. So now we see the ut. Okay, so we have a purpose clause. Because this is not a command. It's not wish or command or begging. This is simply an indicative verb. So we have a purpose clause being introduced here. All right. So we know that the next clause is going to be in the subjunctive. Remember, ut is a conjunction. All right. It's an adjective. I think you knew that, right? Ut was a conjunction, and it's going to be linking these two clauses. So then we come to this next one, next word, and we first ask ourselves, cum, right? What's the part of speech? Well, that's a preposition, and it governs the ablative case. We know that about cum. And it means with. So this could be the ablative accompaniment, but there's another way it can be used. It still is the ablative accompaniment, but we'll see how that works depending on the verb that is here. But we have the word with. Now remember, if it governs the ablative, we're going to see if the next word is in the ablative case, because remember the preposition is prepositioned before the noun that it is before the noun that is its object. So we look at Romanis. We say, yeah, indeed, this is in the ablative case. It could be in the dative case too, but it makes more sense that it's in the ablative case since it's coming right after cum. So we have a masculine, plural, and ablative case. Now, we go on from there. So with the Romans is going to be our translation here. Okay? Then we go to in. In is yet another preposition. In is another preposition, and it too can govern the ablative, or it can govern the accusative if motion is implied. All right? So we're going to take a look at what object it could be next, and we're going to see its campo, which is the plain or level surface. All right? So we ask ourselves, look at campo. What do we have here? Well, this one we have campus campi. It's second declension. So it is masculine, it is singular, and it could be ablative or dative again. But in this case, since it's following in, we're going to assume the ablative. Okay? So in the plain, all right, or on the plain. Either one of those translations will work. Then we come to our last word, all right, which is pugnet. All right? Pugnet. I'm sorry, I forgot the maker on there. Pugnet is a pugno pugnare. So we see the stem, but we also see this E, and that's odd because we know that pugno pugnare is a first conjugation verb. So why the E? Well, it's a purpose clause. So we have a subjunctive verb. This is a stem vowel mutation. So we have a verb. We're going to look for the person. We see the T at the end, so we know it's third. We know it is singular, and we know it is the subjunctive mood. It is the subjunctive mood. And when we see that stem vowel mutation, we know it is the present subjunctive. All right? So when we translate this whole thing, we look at the second clause in order that with, but when you have a word like fighting, cum can mean against. So I think that might even be the better translation here. When you have a verb like fighting, kum can mean against. So we would say, in order that, literally it would mean, with the Romans on the plain, he may fight. So we would say in English translation, in order that he may fight against the Romans on the plain. That would be the second clause. So the sentence altogether would read, the queen will give a great sword to the good man in order that he may fight against the Romans on the plain. Just one more thing to remember, this is primary sequence because future is one of the primary tenses. Future is one of the primary tenses, so the subjunctive verb will be in the present tense. So that's it for sentence 3, or sentence 4. Thank you. So, to the magic of film editing, we are now on sentence 3. Of course, typical of me, I forgot the E in sentence. We're now on sentence 3 from page 58. This is the English to Latin sentence. All right, so we're going to read it in English first. Remember what we do here. We're going to determine how the words, the syntax of the words within the English sentence, and then find a case that will give us the same type of meaning as the English word. Maybe not exactly, but as close as we can get in the Latin language. All right, so the sentence is, the strong men were silent in order that they might not frighten, the beautiful children. Okay, interesting stuff. Let's see what we can do here. All right, first thing up is the strong men were silent. That is obviously the subject. There's a couple of ways this can work. All right. Strong, you remember, is an adjective. All right. It's an adjective, and it's modifying men. All right. So, what is the adjective for strong? Is walidus aum. Walidus aum. All right. So that is the first word. Now, what are we going to do with it? Well, we've got to find a masculine form because obviously it is men. So we're going to use this first one, the masculine form, the second declension endings in masculine. All right, and we know it's plural and we know it's nominative. So we're going to look for the because it's the subject of the sentence, the nominative, plural, and masculine form. So we'd have walidi, walidi, with the macron and the I. That's all we need in Latin. That's amazing. The strong men in Latin can be just translated as one word, walidi. Now, if you would like, you can include the man in there. We know strong men, but this has the masculine meaning already. So walidi by itself means the strong men. But we have men over here, and that would be wiri, if you had that one included. So we had the walidi wiri, okay? The walidi wiri, the strong men. Were silent, okay? Were silent. All right. We're going to use the imperfect for this one, okay? We might say we're being silent, all right? We're going to use the imperfect for this one. So let's see how that one would work. We're going to use the imperfect. You could use the pluperfect as well. It's a secondary sequence, but we're going to use the imperfect, all right, in the indicative, all right? Or you could even use the perfect tense, all right? Because we're clearly in the past here. Well, I'll give you one. Well, you can't use the pluperfect in this one because it's were silent. But you can use the perfect or the imperfect. All right, so let's see how that would work. Strong men were silent. So if that was a adjective, a pronoun, this would be they. So we're looking at third person, and we're looking at the plural, third plural. And we're looking at either the imperfect tense, right? Or the perfect, either one, all right? So you remember, silent is takeo, right? Takere, so it is a second conjugation verb. Takeo, takere. So we're looking for the third person plural imperfect. If we want to use that one, we could say takebat. Takebat, okay? So that would be that one. Or it's takui in the third principal part, so we could also say takuerunt. Okay? Either one of those translations is perfectly acceptable. So walidiwiri, either takebant or takuerunt. All right? Now we have again in order that. They were silent. Again, not an order, but a purpose clause. So this introduces a purpose clause, so we all know that's going to be ut. Okay? And we look down here, we jump ahead a little bit, we see it's not. So it's not ut, it's not a positive purpose clause, it's a negative purpose clause. So we're going to use ne, because that not makes it a negative purpose clause. So now let's look at the second clause. So your first clause should read, walidi wiri, all right, takebant, or takuerunt, ne. Ne is the conjunction. All right, they might not frighten the beautiful children. Okay. So they might not frighten is all one word in Latin. All right, because we have a purpose clause, even if it's a negative purpose clause. So we're going to use the subjunctive here, and this is secondary sequence. This is secondary sequence, and it's happening at the same time. Okay, the strong men are silent or were silent, and why were they silent? So at that very same time, they could not frighten the beautiful children. So we're going to use the imperfect subjunctive as well. Frighten, in this case, is tereo. Tereo terere. Please, some of you might have written timeo, but that is to be afraid, okay, or to fear. Okay, tereo is to frighten or terrify. So you have terero, terere, all right? And so they're in the act of frightening. They might not frighten. Well, we're using the imperfect subjunctive. It's they, so it's the third person plural. So we're going to use this. This is our stem for the imperfect subjunctive. We're going to write tererent. We're going to add the personal endings right on to the infinitive stem, and that gives us tererent. Now, who are they not frightening? Who are they not frightening? Who is the receiver of this action? Well, it's beautiful children. All right, and if you look in your original vocab, it doesn't have it in your vocabulary section, but if you looked at the original, the beginning of Unit 3, you would see that natus is all, it can be son or child. Okay, we can use that one as our noun, child, and we're going to use the plural of that. All right, so let's start here though. So it's beautiful children. Beautiful is an adjective. All right, and it's modifying children, so it's in the plural. Now, in this particular case, the noun we're using is masculine. So even though the children could be girls, we're not going to frighten any of the children, but we're going to use the masculine form. So we know that the word in the masculine is pulkar. All right? So we're going to make it plural. Now, it is plural, but what are they doing? Look at the sentence again. They might not frighten the beautiful children. This is the direct object. The children are the direct object. They're the ones not being frightened. They're not, in this case, receiving the action of the verb frighten. So, they are the direct object nevertheless. So, you know this one is going to be accusative and plural and masculine. So, we have to make our adjective the same. So, we would use pulchros. That is remember the stem has the R, it drops the E and goes to the R. So, you should have pulchros. All right, and then for children, you should have the plural there, nati. Nati. All right, because that would be, natos. That would be the accusative masculine and plural, natos. So your translation should read, tererent pulchros natos. And that is a sentence. An interesting side note, actually there is a word for children in Latin, and it actually comes from the adjective liber, which means free. So the word libri in Latin not only means free men, but it is the word they used when they were talking about children, the free ones. That is, the children are free from obligations. So they, instead of using natos, they probably would have used libros, because the children are the free ones. So that is the end of sentence 3 on page 58. I hope that was helpful for you. And thank you for joining me in our virtual classroom.